first steps in setting up your home irrigation is figuring out your water pressure and how fast you can fill a 5-gallon pail. So Tom is going to turn on, and he's marked on the pail that we have 5 US gallons here. But what we're going to do is see how long it takes to fill it up from our tap. So Tom's going to turn it on. I'm setting my timer. Seconds.
What we have to do now is calculate what that equivalent flow rate is.
Yes.
So you take 3,600, which is the number of seconds in an hour.
Okay.
Divide by 64.
Divide by 64.
Times 5 gallons. 281 gallons per hour flow rate. The tools you're required to set up a home irrigation system are really quite simple. You need something to cut the tubing, and I use secateurs because they snap it real nice. You could use an X-Acto knife if that's what you got, but I find it's difficult to use. The other thing you'll need is a tape measure for just measuring lengths. You need a pair of pliers because you'll find that some of this tubing is quite hard when it comes time to push fittings in. If you're just using your fingers, sometimes it doesn't work, especially on a cold day. On a warm day, it's more forgiving. So I use a pair of simple pliers. The next most important tool is a hole punch. You can buy this one, which maybe 20 cents, and as far as I'm concerned, it's absolutely useless. Or you can buy this one, and it's about a $5 tool. You just go and pop, and you get a little finite hole like that. And when you use this tool, don't punch it slowly because it won't work. You gotta punch with a real snap to it, and that gives you the hole. And these holes are used to attach some of your feeder lines to various strippers and sprayers, etc. The next major component of your irrigation system will be your main header hose, which is this material here. And it comes in 2 sizes. It comes in 1/2-inch diameter and 5/8 diameter. And an interesting fact about those size differences, you wouldn't think it would result in much of a difference in flow rate, but it's huge. The 5/8 tube will allow water to flow at about 720 gallons per hour, and the 1/2-inch is 400, so that's about a 40% difference. Lee Valley, where this tubing came from, recommends that if you're going more than 100 feet from your faucet source, you should use the thicker diameter tubing because there's a lot of friction loss in the tubing as you move away from your source. The other tubing you need is this 1/4-inch feeder line, and this will be plugged into the header hose with various fittings. And we'll just run lengths of it to various plants, or we'll set up circuits with drippers or sprayers, whatever configuration. Okay, these are an assortment of other fittings that you're required to have to set up your header hose arrangement. One of the first pieces you need is what's called a hose or faucet connector. Has a filter in it. Can screw into your wall faucet, or if you have a remote location, this will actually screw onto the end of your hose so you can hook up that way. The other item you require is on the terminal end of your header hose. You've got to stop the flow, so you use what's called a compression fitting. These two look very similar. This one has a cap on it that can be screwed off, but it actually stops the water flow and keeps the water in the pipe while it's turned on and supplies your various locations. This also is very handy. In the fall, you've actually got to clean this system out before frost. And most people don't have an air compressor, so what you can do is just lift the hose end of the tubing up, open this up, and just let the water gently drain out. I've had the system in place in my place for about 8 years now. That's all I've ever done. I've never had a failure due to frost breaking parts. Other pieces you'll need an assortment of what's called straight line connectors. This is the one you need the least of. If you have one or two of these, you've probably got enough for your operation. Elbows you'll use a lot of. T's you'll use a lot of. And if you want to build a system where you branch off, you'll need an assortment of inline valves, so you can shut one side of the branch off while the other one flows, and then shut that side off while the other flows. Another handy little fitting, if you have a lot of pots, say on a balcony, this is also a faucet connector, but instead of connecting to the 1/2-inch tubing, it'll connect to 1/4-inch tubing, and then you can have a whole series of these little 1/4-inch tubes going from pot to pot to pot with drippers intermittent between them. So this is just called a 1/4-inch faucet connector. Okay, we're gonna set up just a short circuit to show you how everything goes together. So we're gonna start with the header hose, and we're gonna assume this is our wall faucet, and we'll put our faucet hose connector. These connectors just slide on, and I'll give you a little hint, do this on a hot day, because they don't slide on good on a cold day. I'm sure I'm gonna struggle a bit. Oh. It's going.
There we go.
This tubing is not particularly forgiving, and if you do it on a hot day, it works way better. So we're now connected, and we can hook this up to our faucet, and I'll do that right now. And this might represent 50 feet from your faucet, whatever your length is that you've got to run out. So what we also have to put on is a terminal end. Again, another fitting that works much better on a warm day than a cool day. You can see the tubing is not perfectly round, it's flattened a little. And it's on. And push it on as far as you can. This will seal okay, but the further on you push it, the less risk there is that it'll come free on you. Now maybe you want to put a branch line in this system and run another piece of tubing off in a different direction. Well, you can easily do that. Just take your cutter, whatever you choose to use. I do prefer these. They make a nice, clean, simple cut. You'll cut your tubing, and you'll put an inline T in. And these go on the inside of the tubing. They're much easier to push on than are these terminal ends. And this will be the second piece of feeder line that we're going to put on, so we'll need a compression end on it as well. And then you would hook this end in here. So this would comprise our main line that's going to run probably the length of our garden, and this might go to another little section of garden. So now what we're going to add to these two lengths is the various drippers we have. So let's assume that for this line here we got a series of 3 or 4 little plants that we want to drip irrigate. So we'll take a little section of this feeder line, and what we'll have to do is connect the feeder line to this main header hose, and this is where your little hole punch comes in. So you just give it a quick punch. So this is the connector we'll use to connect the feeder line to the main line, and I usually find it's easier to put the fitting in the feeder line first, and then you've got to pop it through this little tiny hole, and sometimes that can be a chore, and that's where the pliers come in really handy. There it goes. So we're connected. Now, the option we have is, if it's a terminal end, and that's all we want to do, we would put this type of an end on it, or we would put a drip spike on it. So we'll put a terminal end on, but we'll also put a flow-through dripper somewhere in the middle. And this would service a plant that's in the middle of the system. And this drip spike we would just push into the ground, and that would service a plant sitting here, and this dripper would service a plant sitting here, and you could put 5 or 6 in line of this type of dripper to service a bigger area. The other option we have for water delivery, of course, is sprays. So this is called a rigid riser, and we'll attach our line to the rigid riser. This is a variable sprayer. This is a 180 degree sprayer, and these screw into the end. One end of it's threaded, and we might want to put that somewhere out here. So we'll punch a hole. We would attach our feeder line to it. And this is just a support stake. So we could put this in the ground. And this clips into the 2 little notches here. And you can be up as high as you want or as low as you want. If you're irrigating, say, some fairly tall perennials, you're going to want to be fairly high so you can spray over them if need be. If you're doing a lower group of plants, you can stay quite a bit lower if need be. And these clip in here. So this bed has been set up to irrigate with 4 of the sprayers. They're all 90 degree sprayers. And our feed comes in here, and there's header line goes down the side and across here to connect to each of the 4 sprayers. And when we turn it on, we'll find that we can irrigate this bed quite quickly. These, by the way, put out 10 gallons per hour. So when you're watering a bed like this, probably 5 minutes is lots. That's all you need. Now I'll turn it on.